Hey, welcome everybody to this week's How to Repair Pendulum Clocks live stream. This is not exactly the end of this project, but it's the kind of end for now, in the sense that we are doing a kind of trial assembly of our clock. I've actually got remembered or seen a couple of repairs. Just check that the YouTube is working. Doesn't look like it's oh, there we are. I needed to refresh, so it does appear to be working okay. Well, as good as it ever does anyway. I must stop worrying about that. So this week we're again on with our early 19th century long case clock, which I have been cleaning some more. You may remember that when we started this, I did some kind of preliminary cleaning just to get the most of the sort of loose. Thank you, Ken. Most of the loose sort of dust. As always, in this world of ours of clock repair, there's this overriding question of what is dirt and what is clean. And of course, nobody knows, so you need to make your own ideas up about that. Anyhow, so I did a washing. Then this week, I've washed everything again in the normal way with mineral spirits. Then I washed it with detergent to try and get some of the kind of maybe nicotine or soot, those kind of organic compounds off there. Then I washed it again in mineral spirits. So it's now had 4 stages of cleaning, washing, call it what you want. So it's not the final assembly because we've still got work to do on the dial, still got hands to make. But what I'm going to try and do tonight is get it finished to the degree that it can run for the next month. And then we can finish up after our holiday, because we're having a holiday. Yay. Well, holiday from live streaming anyway. Not light down a bit. And turn that one up a bit. That's better. And we'll be back whatever the first Thursday in September is. I forgot to look it up, but anyway. So nice to see you all there. Ken, Franklin, Neil, Ian, Jeremy. Ian, yeah, great. Thank you for joining us. So I just got one repair to deal with. It's not a big deal. We're hoping to get the clock reassembled today. And let me just find the parts. Of course, with any repair project, you know, there's been in bits for so long, as this clock has for months now. You always worry that you're going to have lost a part. So we'll see how that goes. Many other things going on in this workspace. So one thing I noticed before, there are 2 elements to it, is the hammer. Now the hammer pivot hole at this end of the hammer arbor often wears very relatively rapidly, and the bearing ends up being quite rattly. So when the clock strikes, it kind of rattles about. So you either have to rebush it, or you have to put some extra material on here, or do both. And I think I'm going to put a bit of extra material on there. But first, I need to allow myself probably the best part of 3/4 of an hour to actually put it together. So we've probably got about 3/4 of an hour to do this couple of repairs. So I'll find hammer spring, which is here, like that, inside of the plate. And let's just look for the screws. I think there's 6 screws in this clock. We're looking for the one that's the odd one out here, really. well, there's one there with a point on it, but I seem to remember that that's the bell standard, or what's left of the bell standard. You can see it's still a bit rusty here on the thread, so I've still got a bit more cleaning to do there. So the cleaning game isn't entirely over yet. Let's just have a look at the screws that we've got left, see if I can identify which is which. I think it looks like that one, because that's a short one. Let's just pop that in there, see if it fits. Don't think it fits, so. Doesn't appear to be that one, so that's good. Just slightly smaller diameter thread than the others. Oh, this is going to be a good start, isn't it? If the screw doesn't exist. And that one fits. You see all these screw threads are still a bit rusty, so I'll have to deal with those. That's interesting. Just shows what a difference you can have in the screws in a clock like this. I'll just double check that for my own kind of sanity. So we've got 2 for the Babcock, 2 for the hour wheel bridge, 1 for the bell standard, and 1 for the hammer spring. I don't think there's anything else at 6, isn't it, altogether? So I haven't lost any. Just a case of figuring out. The fact that they're a bit rusty probably won't help. They're not massively rusty, but it probably looks a bit worse than it actually is. Of course, what I could have done is to have, I think I did actually demonstrate that at the beginning of this process. I could have kept them separate from where they came out. But of course, with a clock like this, there's absolutely no guarantee that they were in the right place in the first instance. All right, that one actually does seem like a good fit. Now I've just framed myself. Screwdriver. Clock clubs, just come back from work and then starting more work. So that sounds positive. Okay, so I mentioned last week about the length of these screws. So that is quite reassuring. Just sticks through, never short and never massively long. So that looks okay. I say a bit more de-rusting to do there, but let's just have a look at this wear and decide what we're going to do about it. So the hammer springs on these are quite strong, not as strong as a kind of lantern clock or something, but nevertheless go with quite a boom. Okay, so it'll be damped down a bit when it's got oil on it, but nevertheless it's not quite strong enough, isn't the spring actually? And there are 2 things here. One is the potential for rebushing this hole, which, as you can see, is a little bit worn, a little bit, not bad. But we don't have a depthing issue here per se. And the other one is to add a little bit of material either to the top of the spring or the underside of the this stock piece here, just to make up for a bit of wear. And what's nice is when you're finished, this actually isn't far off, but is to have this proportion here actually parallel with a plate like that. I guess that's kind of how it's meant to be when it was new. And you can achieve that, as I say, in 2 ways, by if you look, if we were to re-bush or put a bush in there because it's not being bushed, that would pull it in and achieve the same thing. Often these wear right round and then people bend the hammer shank back. So it's nice to have that straight parallel with the edge of the plate. I wouldn't worry about it normally, other than the fact that when it's like this, it bounces quite a bit. So I think actually what I might do there, break the habit of a lifetime. I was going to add a bit of metal on, but I think I will actually put a thin-walled bush in there, which mustn't take up too much time overdoing this. Otherwise I won't get the clock reassembled. So yeah, because the beauty of putting the bush in there, and I wouldn't, you know, I'm not a massive fan of bushing, no bushing without depthing, remember? I won't start bitching about other people's YouTube videos. Anyway, the beauty of re-bushing the hole, the pivot will have worn oval. So you could put the arbor in a lathe and turn it, but that's just more kind of, gosh, I've got all my, I'll get rid of those, clear all. Hundreds of notifications have popped up now, blocking all your, rubbish. Oh, there we are. I need to go to...
So why is it supposed to be parallel with you?
Oh, only in the sense of an aesthetic that I presume that when they were made, they were parallel. You would imagine that that parallel with a hammer shank going straight up would look smart. I don't know. No historic evidence for that, Derek, just the fact that as they wear, they tend to wear in this direction. So for us to undo that wear, I mean, the reality is I could leave this, perfectly happy to leave it, as you know. But I think, but yeah, as I say, the thing is when it strikes, I don't want to make the hammer spring so strong that the clock struggles to strike. I'd rather keep the hammer spring relatively weak. And then maybe I'm going to try sectional weights on this clock as well. So maybe we can reduce the driving weight. But I mean, this is a borderline case. The reality is I put it together, put some D5 oil on it, it'll be absolutely fine. Probably people wouldn't particularly bother with that. So now I'm in, I should have made my mind up before, shouldn't I, as to whether to either bush it, as I said, or the alternative. The alternative is always to do nothing, which is my favorite alternative. The alternative is to, so this is both, up there so you can see, this is both spring and stop in one. So the spring is there, look, and then the stop is underneath here. If you can see that kind of hidden in there, it's all a bit gloomy in there. And so you've got three things that have worn, four things that have worn. In fact, you've got this surface here, you've got the top of the spring, you've got the pivot, and you've got the hole. And so you could, I say normally what I would do is I would solder on a piece of material on the top of the spring there. You can see the spring's actually worn, a little notch in it. I'm kind of happy with that, not too fussed about that at all. Clock's already been extensively bushed. Yeah, well, maybe we will just see what it sounds like when it's actually striking. Yeah, it's just a decision, really. Don't know. Feeling a bit indecisive today, as you can tell, which is normally I'll just say, nah. Oh yeah, I know. I said I would put the thing back together again. I've allowed myself 45 minutes to do that. I think that's kind of possible. But now I'm deliberating over this this bushing or not. It's just kind of so borderline. Yeah. Maybe it would just crack on with putting it back together. I'm going to run it over the next month anyway and see how it goes. It always seems more of it. Obviously, if it had been bushed already, I'd have no problem doing it. But the fact that it's one of the few holes in this clock that has escaped in fact, the striking train's in quite good nick by the look of it. I don't know, that's been done. I noticed when I was photographing it before that when this fly bushing has been done before somebody's driven the bushing, it's pushed up the top of the plate, which presumably completely defeated the object of doing the bushing in the first place because it would have changed the depth thing. So, and it's only going to get worse. It is only going to get worse. Derek, you are absolutely right. Although I can't legislate for the future, I have to make the decision here and now. But that's true. It's not going to improve for sure if we run the thing. And I think a tight, because the beauty of doing a bushing there is you can make the hole actually tight. You know, if you bush a normal train wheel, just doesn't work if it's tight. It has to have side shake. You don't have to do that here. You can leave it not tight, but really snug, which completely reduces the sort of slop in the whole thing. Let's just have a look at what bushes we've got. Dread Good. Right, I've just seen my me too. Let's have a look at that pivot size. It's funny, isn't it? When you kind of, maybe it's not everybody else, it's just me. So we've got a pivot about 2 1/4 mil. And have I got a drill? Let's just have a look for a drill first before I get too excited. Yes, I've got a drill, so that's looking good. And so we want a bush. You could use bushing wire. Bushing wire is better, really, but I'm feeling both lazy and in a kind of holiday kind of mode. So the question is, how thin can we get our bush wall? Let's have a look at yeah, I'm cool. I am cool. So somebody wrote this like really amazing book on bushing and depthing, and very usefully in that book they put a cross-reference table to help people who were relatively kind of novice decide on bush wall thickness. So that was 2, I should have written it down, wasn't it? That was 2 1/4. I mean, the answer is with this, we can get away with something that's really thin, because obviously I don't want to take out so much material. In fact, I don't want to take out any material, which is partly why I'm mucking about with the whole thing. So I don't actually have a copy of this book myself, but I got print out. Let's have a look. Right. Well, according to this cross-reference table, which is incredibly useful, I can get away with a bush that is about 3 millimeters diameter. So, I mean, if you're going to do a bushing, make sure the bush walls are nice and thin. So let's just see what we've got here. If I've got one, in fact, yeah, feeling super lazy today. 14. So here's your problem. Normally you get a bush like this and you open up, well, you don't, one conjectural person who doesn't exist watching this live stream opens up the hole to fit pivot diameter Well, of course, because we're interested in preserving as much material as possible, we are going to open up the bush to get the maximum diameter of hole we can for the minimum outside diameters. And the purpose of that is so that we have to remove as little material as possible. So let's say we can put a 3mm bush in there. It's 2¼ millimeters. So whatever 3/4 millimeter, 0.7, which actually seems like a massive amount, divided by 2 is going to be our wall thickness. Still seems like quite a lot, but anyway.
Is that table in depthing and bushing, or is it in book 1?
No, it's in depthing and bushing. The definitive work on depthing and bushing. I mean, I keep saying that, I'm joking, of course, but I don't think that anybody else has actually written down the relationship between depthing and bushing. John Wilding probably did, in all fairness to him, and probably Malcolm Wilde. Right, okay. So I'm going to draw the hole across a bit. Remember, if we were just to whack a new bush in there, open up the hole and put a new bush in there, it's not going to change our center. It's just going to probably generate a new center that's halfway between the earlier or existing center and the worn center. So this is the whole point that, sorry to bang on, just you've got to establish a new center. Otherwise, there's no point. You're just removing material. Sorry, I'm teaching my grandmothers to suck eggs. So what I'm going to do is continue to work on this and then put it on the Facebook group, my progress. I think I've come to a realization about why the Zoom camera looks so different is that when I do a live stream, totally irrelevant and boring bit of information, when I do a live stream, I go through Zoom US. And when I do a Saturday Open Clock Club, I go through Zoom US, but the UK version, and it looks completely different. And I think that's the reason why I've been very confused by that until today. The color's different, the angle of the camera is different. So maybe that sounds completely bonkers. So let's just establish that across there, which direction this thing is being pushed. So the spring is pushing pretty much in that direction, and then the stop is pushing in that direction. So you've got the spring like this and the stop basically at 90 degrees. So one might presume, I don't know which of those forces is causing most wear. Maybe the percussive force of the stop is causing more wear than the spring, but I'm going to have to kind of take a mean average and file at 45 degrees. So I'm just going to leave the hammer spring on there. As I said, this isn't the final cleaning anyway, so I'm not massively bothered. Now I'm going to have to estimate how much wear there is because I want to file an equal and opposite amount on the other side. So I look at the ovalization. I see, again, I don't really want to get into bitching about other people's work because there's no point. I see a lot of people base their filing on the oil sink, which is useful. It's a guide, but remember with a clock like this, it's not like a factory as opposed to manufacturer made clock where the oil sink was probably concentric with the hole originally. It's only a guide. Don't rebush to the oil sink. You've got to be more sort of creative than that. Now, this is relatively close to the edge of the plate, so I've got to be a bit careful when I push the bush in that it doesn't It would be really nice. There is a small oil sink, manufacturer's oil sink on this hole. It would be really nice if we can rebush within that oil sink and not actually go out onto the edge of the plate. Right. So I've filed down about what I estimate the amount of wear is on the other side. So when we make our new center by reaming, we will pretty much get it sort of back where it was. Now, there might be a problem here because it's quite close to the pillar, but I can always ream, I think, from the other side. I'm going to use the bushing tool. Am I going to use the bushing tool? I don't know. I'm hopeless today. Can't make up any decision. So 297. Let's just have a look at this. Start with a 2.5. So these reamers, these are the Bergeon ones, are 0.03 millimeters smaller diameter than the bush, which I hope I haven't lost, that you put into the hole. So I'm going to start with, we know our pivot's about 2.25. So the first ream I'm going to use is 247. There it is.
Darren says you should use a bushing tool.
Should use a bushing tool. Why's that?
Why?
Yeah.
When you asked for help.
Oh, I see.
I passed on the request for help.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Use the bushing tool. Okay. I'm going to use the bushing tool. Thank you. Yeah. I need my hand holding today, big time. Right. Interestingly, the 247 is already too big, which is slightly surprising, but there you go. So let's have a look. Don't think that's going to hold it. So no, get the bushing tool out. All this junk out of the way.
Jeremy's got the Kindle depth and bushing. This is excellent.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for that. I must say myself, I think it's good in the sense that it says things that you can't read anywhere else that I've ever found anyway. Maybe there's some whole kind of body of work that I've never seen, but presumably things like the British Horological Institute's correspondence course do cover that kind of stuff, but I haven't ever gotten that far into it. I started and failed. Right. Okay. Got cardboard. And because of the way that I do this, I'm not sure actually that's going to fit in, is it? Probably have to change it for that screw. That screw going there. Presumably it's kind of interchangeable, good old Swiss. And that screw can go in there. Which I think was the way round it was when it was new. What I did was I took that out of there and put it in here just to make it quicker to change the reamers, but that was like more than 20 years ago. So here's the question. Take that spring off. Question is, will it fit in? Yep, it will. Right, I'll try and do it so you can see, which is the whole point, because I don't need to see this. I've seen it many times before. There we are. So I'm using a bit of cardboard to protect the plate, and you will have noticed that I've taken the arms off the bushing tool and chucked them away. I think you can get about 30 quid on eBay for them. So that's the best thing to do, because we've made a new effective center, remember, by filing. So we don't need to clamp the plate. The reamer now will find that new center. Basically, it's going to make a double ovalized hole round again. This is making the hole round. So we don't want the arms. They're just going to cause a problem. I don't quite know the purpose of the arms because I don't think you can align it accurately enough. I mean, how much material did we remove there? Less than 1/4 millimeter. In my experience, it's just not possible to see and align the thing. I'd rather do it this way, but there you go. Each to their own. Okay, so I've reamed that out. I probably filed it a little bit too much. Let's just check it's not going to be too loose in there. So that's 297. This is one of the tweezers there, 300. Oh, should be. Can't see. Yeah, it should be okay. So now what we need to do is to drill out that bush, because if we put the bush in there, we've got loads and loads and loads and loads of broaching to do. I'd rather drill it fractionally undersized and then just broach a little bit. So I'm going to drill it 0.1 or 0.2 undersized. So I hope I can find a 3 millimeter collet. Just go up to my lathe. So here's a collet. Oops. Again, this is why the bushing wire is kind of a lot easier, really, because you can hold it, you can take a bit off of the graver, etc., etc. I'm not quite sure why I'm doing it this way, but anyway, I am. It's one of those days. Let's just see if it'll actually fit in the 3 millimeter. Some of my collets are so old that they're being well used and abused as well. Okay. But actually, see, that's 3T. Somebody put it back in the wrong hole. Can you imagine? I wonder what that was. Right, okay. Gremlins. Fairies, pixies.
Neil says he's got the Kindle Book 2 and it's great. It definitely makes him feel more confident about giving bushing overall.
Ah, thank you. You're all been very kind about my book. Thank you. Mine and John's book, sorry, not just my book. Right, okay, so let's just see if we can seem to be already overwhelmed with tools. Don't need that. Don't need that. My dog, by the way, before anybody says anything. My dog's really well behaved. Just in my mind. Right, there we are. We've got the which I've been doing some work today on the hour wheel bridge thing that we repaired, so hence all the wood in the lathe. Busy day today. It's been clocks morning, noon, and night. Right, so I'm going to double, triple check. I'm going to not drill it out too much. So I'm going to be fractionally undersized for 2.2. Okay, so I'll drill at 2.1. No. I might not drill at 2.1 because I don't have 2.1 drill. Oh, there we are. It's 2.1. So again, somebody's put it in the wrong place. It's either Gremlins, Pixies, or who else is it? Who might be doing that? Gremlins, Pixies. Oh, something else. Anyway, let's just this drill isn't backed off the brass, so I'll just drill nice and slowly. The drill doesn't seem to be. Drilling one bit. Right, okay. Drill bit's been severely abused. I don't know who these people are who do all this stuff. Terrible. Can't leave anything nowadays. Right, so just going to very quickly with my easy lap diamond horn thing. So the drills go in that direction. Has anybody figured out what day we'll be back? What's that Thursday is? I've just taken material off the back of the drill, you know, the relief angle with the diamond horn thing. And now I'm just going to do that trick. I've shown it before on this. The trick of relieving the kind of front angle so the drill doesn't grab on brass. Again, just using this time I'm using the Spyderco ceramic stone. Yes, our next clock's an American clock, the Lancet, which I've been threatening to do for ages. Didn't quite realize this project was going to take so long, but only doing an hour and a half a week, of course, can't really complain. Right, let's see if that actually drills now. There we are. Gosh, what a difference sharpening your tools makes, weirdly. Isn't that strange? Oh, 2nd, is it?
Yeah.
Right. Thursday, the 2nd of September it is. Now you may, I don't want to drop it on the floor if I can help it. And you may not be able to see that here because the camera won't focus. But we've got, actually, I'm slightly surprised that that's quite as thick walled as it is. Still quite chunky there. So we've got no problem that being successful. So that's the key. If you're going to do a bushing, then make sure that the wall thickness is as thin as you can. And yeah, sometimes they come loose when you're broaching, but then you've got to just take a bit more material out. Thank you, Jeremy, for that. So don't lose that thing now. I've bothered making it. That's our plate. There it is. So what I want to do is to check that the bushes are the correct length. Rather than having to finish it once it's fitted, I'd rather just stick it in and then it's done. And obviously I can measure it, but I can see here the height. Let's just measure it. That's a much better idea, isn't it? So the plate's 3 mil. I think these bushes are 3, are they as well? Yeah. Gosh. There you go. Good, 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 good. I might do a bit of deburring there because it's the thing, the what do they call it? Just thrown up a bit of a burr. Brass hammer. Now inserting these bushes this way is a little bit trickier because they don't have that much, well, they don't have any lead on them. They've got a little chamfer on them, but so it's important to keep them upright, otherwise they tend to slip over again, which is why it's a lot easier with the bushing method. You could use the bushing tool, but I've lost it now, with the little stake thing. But it's actually quite easy with the bushing wire because you've got a tapered thing going into a tapered hole. So they tend to stay upright. Oh, that's not a bit of cardboard. That's what I'm looking for. I'll put my bit of cardboard on there. No. Oh, so it's in, and it's just. Oh, it's actually well within the oil sink that was there. So that's quite neat. Not that that's the kind of be all and end all, but it means we haven't gone on to the kind of plate proper. So making myself feel slightly better. So I'm going to make up the oil sink part of this now, because if you, doesn't really matter on this because it's not a train wheel, but if you bush a train wheel and then you broach it out from both sides to make that nice double taper, get the thing working, and then do your oil sink, it'll throw burrs back into the hole, which are going to cause you a problem. So I'll do the oil sink now and then broach to size.
Jeremy says, can you do it with a staking set view? And then you know the stake is coming down vertically.
Yeah, you could. That would be a much. Malcolm Wilde, I don't know whether Ian's got one. Ian's got every tool known to man, as we know. And I think Malcolm Wilde made a clock-sized staking tool, which is really nice. I used to have one at the college. It's quite useful. And yeah, you're absolutely right. But you can use the bushing tool thing. That's got stakes with it to push the bushing straight. Because I say there is a chance with these short bushes that they tip over a little bit, which is not ideal. So yes, you can use a staking set. Should be a bit neater. So there we just got our roller sinker to cut the oil sink. Now I'm going to cut the oil sink on the bush, but I don't want to touch the plate. I'm already suffering enough for having filed away 1/4 millimeter of material. So I'm just going to take the oil sink down. Can't really get enough pressure on with my fingers. So I'll just put that in pin vise. Don't want to slip. Again, I could use the bushing tool chamfer. It's got a 45-degree chamfer tool with it, so that would work absolutely fine, and it would be quicker. Right, I said I would have finished this in 45 minutes, didn't I? But I've got to allow for the 10 minutes I took messing about, deciding whether to do it or not. Cool. There you go. Quite happy with that. It's just wants a little bit more. What I'll probably do later is get a graver and just because it's at the point now it's going to start cutting into the plate. So I just want to cut a bit more off there on the oil sink. But there you go. Don't know whether that's a good idea or not. So the next thing is to do is to broach it. So let's get our pivot, which hopefully doesn't fit in the hole yet. Good. That would be bit perplexing if it did. So remember, with these thin wall bushes, you can't kind of go crazy with them. What I could actually do here is to ream it, which would keep it more parallel with the 2¼ millimeter reamer. But I think I'll just broach it if I find the broach. The beauty of broaching, of course, is your broach is a sort of, infinite number of diameters. Let's just look for one that's obviously the right size, would help. Good. Pin vise. Sorry, keep forgetting about the camera. So, all right. So this isn't a train wheel, but as I'm here and as people do watch these videos later, when you start broaching, start from the inside until the pivot just begins to enter the hole. And what's really important here is uprighting. So that's the broach being perpendicular to the plate. Otherwise, you'll think you've got side shake, you put the clock together, it'll stop after a bit because the pivot is binding up. That's taking it, of course, that the pivot is actually on the opposite side or directly opposite the hole, which typically they are, but you can't always rely on that. Shouldn't really keep blowing on it either, because when you blow on it, of course, sounds a bit gross, but you spit on it, which is pretty corrosive. So it's much more professional to use your puffer. I don't know where mine is. Yeah, this is the kind of satisfying part of the process, because you can just begin to feel the broach going in the hole. Took my gloves off to do this because it was a bit of a faff. So it does mean I have to re-clean. So I'm checking again for uprighting by rotating the plate so I can see. You could use an engineer's square if you wanted to check. And I say what I want here is, see the pivots actually stuck in the hole now? With a train wheel, you've still got quite a way to go. But with this, I want it to be actually slightly, not tight, but snug, I think we said. Snug is the word. Reminds me of that song. Right. So this is the magic point when you're broaching pivots. The pivot's about halfway through the hole. Now it's stuck into the hole, as you can see. So I'll start broaching from the other side. Without stabbing my finger. Again, uprighting, checking for uprighting. There we are, and it's in the hole. Let's just check that it is actually uprighted. Good. So all that faff, but as you see, it's taken out the slop in there. So hopefully it'll be quieter. Might still have to do the other thing. You can see it's quite tight in there. It's just that loose, which would be, as I said, repeat myself, but it would be no good for a train wheel pivot. That clock is going to stop. Your customer's going to ring up and say, that clock you fixed, it's stopped. Not quite finished there yet. Just need to do a little bit of a chamfer on the inside. We've done now our oil sink. Let's do a wee chamfer on the inside like that. Get our pegwood. Get some steel wool and deburr both sides. As I said, normally you'd have to now re-clean this plate because it's got fingerprints on it and steel wool on it. This is a temporary reassembly. So if you want to make your clocks run when you've done bushing, not that anybody really does any bushing, but very, very occasionally we have to do something. this is the trick that makes them run, because if there's anything that's going to stop your clock, it's a chamfer here. It's not a chamfer, sorry, a burr there, or a corner where your pivot hasn't quite got a right angle corner, because they often don't, and it will bind over time. And the killer part of this is it won't bind straight away. It'll take a while to kind of gall. So deburring with steel wool, play it on the right way around, it would help, wouldn't it? There we are. So slack enough to move, but very little kind of play in there. As I said, that would be too tight for train. You would have to do something a bit more generous. So let's just pop our spring back and see if that's any made any difference to the attitude. In fact, we can leave the spring in this time, can't we? I need to put my gloves back on. Okay, so we've got, oh gosh, we've got 40 minutes. I'm not quite sure we're going to get the thing put back together, but hey ho. Just feeling in a kind of, oh gosh, come on, brain. I need some kind of collective concentration. Nice, great, really happy with that. There we are, you can see it's on the right side now, the correct side of being parallel. In fact, it's pretty damn close to being parallel, and it's damped it down beautifully. Look, rattling's pretty much completely gone. Super happy with that. That was, whether it was worth doing or not, I don't know. But anyway, I've done it. Right, I'm just going to put my gloves back on and have a wee drink. And okay, splash out on some new gloves. There you go, Yorkshire man. A new pair of gloves. It's a second pair this week. Love the 400-day clocks. Yes, I've got a 400-day clock waiting in the wings.
I'm desperate for you to get on with it.
Yeah, I know. I've got such a list of projects. I can see it. I can see the box from here. I know. I will get onto it. Been a while since I've done one. So, right, great. Really happy with that. That is, when we hear that striking in the middle of the night, it'll be nice and sort of damped down. Okay, right. Put the rest of it together, albeit temporarily. So I've got some gut line here. I'm not going to use a new bit. Well, I'm going to use new stuff, but I'm not going to use a nice long bit. It's unnecessary. That's probably long enough, because this will be all coming apart again in a month's time. So I reckon that, whatever that is long enough. I can wind it more than once a week. Right. It's going to turn it into a 30-hour clock, but that's fine. All with that. I'll put the proper stuff when I've cleaned it again. So let's just see how many bits we can get together in 36 minutes. Probably not all of them. What else do we need? We need that. Drop it on the floor. So let's get our slip washers there. So with these click, remember we made a new click spring on one side, but on this one we could get the click out. The other one was riveted in, unfortunately. So when we wind it in, just a bit more exposure there. When we wind it in, we get to the point where we can't get it past the spring. So we have to lift the spring up, which always feels a bit dodge. Like that. I think that's it. Oh no, one more turn. Yeah, that's it. So it's tightened up now. So that's the so-called correct place for it, and being super organized, which I'm not. I got some oil out before. So with this clock, usual thing, I'm using D5, Mobius D5 on the lower bearings, the more heavily loaded and slower rotating bearings, and D3 on everything else at the top. So find myself an oiler. Favorite oiler. They want all this brass dust on here. Just brush up. Honest. Okay, so let's just pop a bit of oil on here. So we've just got some on the back of the, some on the back of the thread there, which will work its way in. Then we've got a bit where the click touches the spring, and then a little bit more of the thread. And then I've got to find out which of these barrels, the great wheel, sorry, so the bigger great wheel is the going train. And I think I noticed before somebody, yeah, I was gonna make a rude joke then, but I won't. Scratch W on the back. So we presume, but we can't obviously take it for granted, that that is in fact the watch train. That's what W stands for, not that anybody's even remotely interested. Maybe there's some naval. So let's just double, triple check that that can't go in there. And that one can't go in there. Which it doesn't. So that is correct. That is the best to be sure. So as always, at this point, remember our kind of safety of the object and of the person that's winding it. Action of the click. Don't know whether you can hear it clicking. Nice and positive and clicky. So that's exactly what we want. Okay. Just whip that off again. A bit of oil in there before we put the two components together. Nice big blob there. Every time I'm putting the oiler back on my, there's a little bit of surface rust still there on the back of the click, so a bit more cleaning to do here, but just stuff I can do locally. And then let's find which of these slip washers is the one. It looks like that one, but again, you've got to check it on both to be sure. That's inevitably it'll be the wrong one. Yeah, that doesn't fit on there, so we're good to go. That's there. Pop that on, and remember, as I've said before, these great wheels want to be loose in this plane, so they want to be able to move very, very slightly from side to side like that. Otherwise, when you wind the clock, the reaction from that friction can damage the escapement. Totally unnecessarily to have these tight. A bit tight for my liking. Okay, so let's find out where our hole is. So when you fit these pins, remember that we've got here our lovely spring that we've just been looking at. So for the striking train, you can't have the pin too long because there won't be too much gap between the spring and the pin. But I think on this side, there's nothing here to stop us having a decent length of pin. So I did get my pins out in preparation. There they are. Actually running low, need to stock up. So the pin doesn't have to go far into the crossing. In fact, if you have it going too far through the crossing, of course, it'll stick out the other side and touch on the barrel. So we only need about 1 millimeter sticking in there. Still a bit much. Just cut that down. So at this point, you can put the pin in. Having a hair problem again today. You can put the pin in a pin vise and file the thing to a point if you want, which is quite neat. And importantly, you know what the score is now. We're going to draw file the pin. Wrong. Call it. Stop it from falling out. Good. So I'll do it off camera so the filings don't fall onto the clock. I'll move the clock, in fact, move the plate. So just draw file the pin like that, prevents it from dropping out. Pop it in, tap it in with our brass hammer. Off. Don't cut it off flush, as I said many times. If you want to file it down, you can either take it out again and file it and put it back in again, or you can get a sheet of paper. Put it over there and just file through without filing onto the filings don't go in your work. And then what I like to do, which again, I'll have to do it off camera, is to squidge the end of the pin. Then the next person who comes along can just get a pair of flat nose pliers, twist it, and it comes out as easy as easy. So I always try and remember others. So if you can see that there, I'll zoom in a bit, if it'll focus. Just squidge the end of the pin in the jaws of the vise, which makes it easier for the next person to get it out. I don't think we'll be able to do that on the striking side because it will touch on that spring. So rest of our oiling. Like no room here. So with another good amount in here. First the old bearing, then a little bit on the edge. 1, 2, 3 for good luck. There we are. That's done. Cool. We'll put the line on in a bit. We could have put the line on first, but it doesn't make any difference. So with this one, I think if I remember correctly, we're going to have to make it flush. Got our gritty cobs in the hole. Just going to help us. One bit. Different oiler. Stroke gritty cobs ejector. So let's just have a look here. Good. And then we've got our spring to fit, if I can find it. I haven't chucked it away. Of course I have. Buried under the mountain of tools. So remember our spring, long time since we've seen it. We just need a couple of draw file pins. There, we can't get this click off, unfortunately, which is causes a problem the whole way along. We could have taken it out, but that would have meant hard soldering a new bit of thread on it and so on. So could have done it, but decided to leave it in situ. I suppose eventually it might wear, but I feel we've invested plenty. We don't need to feel too guilty about not doing that as well. As I say, I'm not a massive fan of, I mean, obviously you might decide to give a guarantee with your work. I never give a guarantee per se with my clock repairs, and you can see why. But seriously, obviously, there's a reasonable period at which you want your work to be safe and guaranteed and so on. But beyond that, it's somebody else's problem. Right. Let's find this again. Good. Just gonna draw a file. And hopefully, if I remember, I don't remember leaving anything to do on this, but one never knows. Let's just get that. Tap that in. And our second pin. It won't need any riveting. I'm not going to rivet it. I'm just going to draw out these pins. I think it'll be fine. Okay, let's just sanity check the whole thing. Oh, well, there you go. That was worth doing. Because I presume I did this before, but maybe I didn't. Okay. So the spring is bending out when it's under tension. So rather than just staying in line, it's kind of cockling over. So I'll just get it off and encourage it. It's amazing how tight those pins are. Just draw filing them makes all the difference. Okay, so let's just find ourselves client surface. There's one, Glasgow brush. Using our boxwood hammer. Just encouraging it to slightly dish the other way. Again. I'm glad I didn't rivet it on now, or cut the pins off, in fact. Oh yeah, I really like that boxwood hammer. As I've said probably many times before, I got it from Yapton Tool Shop. Leaside Tools.
How to spell it?
Yapton?
Yeah.
Well, for people like me, it's Y-A-P-T-O-N, but it's not pronounced like that. There we are. It might actually still want to work its way off. Needs to be a little bit livelier. So a tiny bit more. Leaside Tools. I think we've talked about Leaside Tools before. If they're still on the go, of course. Just past the race course. Right, we're in business. Okay, nice and loud. Clicky, clicky, all good, nice and safe. Let's just cut those pins off. I'm going to leave them quite long. The only thing I must be careful of is that they don't foul the line when it winds up. So they've got to be less than about 2 mil. You can see there. They can't be any wider than the click, ratchet click sticking out. But I want to leave them again so I can pull them out as we make adjustments. So I'll just there. That wants to be neatened up in due course. Just when you're cutting something like this, it's useful. Can't really find anything, but just put a bit of metal on there, and you can cut down to the bit of metal, and then that gives you a kind of standard thickness of material. Cool. Have those badges in. Again, just use our bit of paper. File through the bit of paper without touching the edge of the wheel. Nice. And we can get rid of the filings. Good. And on there, again, some on the click where it touches the spring, some on the thread. Oh, what I forgot to do on the other one was actually oil the click where it touches the ratchet wheel. Must go back and do that. Good. Pop this on. And look for a pin. Now, if I'd kept all the bits I cut off, I could probably just use one of those. To use a new pin. New pair of gloves and a new pin in one day. I should have a cold shower and a good lie down after this. Pin, straighten it up. Long. Good in there about millimetre and a bit. Raw file. And I think here we have to cut it off pretty flush because of that spring. So I think it's one of those embarrassing situations where I say, leave this thing long, and then of course you get it together and the clock doesn't run. Let's just cut it down. Gosh, it's super close. I don't know whether you can see there, the pin lock going round. You can just get the camera to really see. It's just touching, which is kind of like the worst fault, isn't it? Because if you don't notice it, you think it's fine. And then, so I'm just gonna leave enough for somebody to grab and file it. Good old bit of paper. Right. Double, triple check something like that because it can be really embarrassing. And again, it's one of those things that it might run a bit and then it'll catch you out. Easily done. Just check. Yeah, it's actually mouse off now. Okay. Let's see, it's a good too dark. Maybe that way I have to say. That's better. It's a good 3/4 millimeter. And our other pins, just check them. I'm obviously going to cut those down later, but yeah, good. Right, that's that done. Anything else to go between the plates? Always remember on our regulators at this point, because the one thing that's dead easy to miss is the maintaining power ratchet. No problem here because we don't have one. But if we were doing a regulator or something with maintaining power, that goes in now again. Otherwise, you get the whole clock together. And so I've pegged out all these holes. Let's just reassemble our fly. Remember, we tidied up this spring that was bent. Smart. Nice bit of friction there. So let's just pop a bit of oil on that. I'm going to use D5 on the fly bearings and a little bit where the arbor touches the spring. Then I'll use D3 on the pivots. But actually, if it's a bit overdriven and quite noisy, it might actually end up using D5 there to kind of quieten the whole thing down. Right, okay, so let's our line on, gloves off, because I'm going to be using my lighter. So when I got the full piece of line, I never cut it. I just put one end on one barrel, one end on the other barrel, and cut it later on. There's no need to do that now. So again, you know the score here. Got some really nice pliers somewhere with bent round ends, just happen to be at hand, which is a perfect tool for grabbing hold of the end of the line. But try not to damage the line as you pull it through, as in the bit that's going to. Remain. It would have been easier maybe to do this before we put the great wheel on, but it's because you can tie a slightly fancy knot if you want, but it's really tight. There's no need. So, vice like this. In my video that I made, first thing to do, use your pliers, really tighten up the knot like that. Second thing is to get your matches or your lighter and burn rather than cut. About as dramatic as it gets, I'm afraid. And again, it's actually maybe quite useful to leave the tail a bit longer. And then when you push it inside, there's no chance of it coming out. That's what I'll do on the next one. I'll do a better job. I promise to improve. So on this one, should be able to get the frame together. Got 10 minutes. Oh well, we won't get it quite ticking tonight, but no, not to worry. I will show you all on Facebook what goes on. Do a little video. I'm actually going to do a blog on this clock, not on the clock per se, but just on the process of this kind of experiment we've had with a live stream and what it's meant. So if you've got any feedback, I'm not going to force people to fill out a feedback form. If you've been to, I've been to too many conferences or training sessions where they say, oh, can you fill out a feedback form? But seriously, if there's any feedback, ping it over on the Facebook Messenger or email me you know, how this live stream, if it's helped, how it could be better, how we can get you more involved. Right, leave the end a bit longer here. And I'll put it in the blog. I'm going to, that's maybe a bit crazy long. That up. So the reason for leaving the slightly longer tail on that is that when you just gently work the knot back into the barrel, see like that, the tail gets shoved inside and it can't get out on its own. So it can't interfere with the winding. Very, very, very occasionally, if the tail's short, it'll interfere with the winding. Good. So there are our two barrels and they're linked together at the moment by the line, which we're going to cut later. So at least we can get our wheels in the frame, I think. Let's see. This is a highlight of the day, obviously. So again, it doesn't matter here because we're going to cut the line. But again, if you're doing something like a fusee clock and you've got the barrel on one end of the line and the fusee on the other, always remember that it goes around the correct side of the pillar because it's frustrating. For instance, if you've got it on this side and it winds that way, you've got to take the clock apart to put the line around the other side. So these are going to go like that. Just have a little brushy brush up. Oh gosh, all these repairs we've done. So center wheel, we repivoted that, we straightened it, it was all bent over, wasn't it? What else have we got? More wheels, more wheels, more wheels, more wheels. I think that's it. And again, some striking clocks. This has got the hammer arbor, but if you've got a spring clock, what people call a bracket clock with a strike silent, again, there's often a pumped arbor that you forget and leave it on the bench. You've got to take it all apart again. As you can tell, I'm speaking from incredibly painful experience here. So we've got our pinwheel. There's going to be a phase relationship issue with our gathering pallet, you know, the one that did get repaired eventually last week. I was quite happy with it, but sometimes you can put them on any one of the four squares. So you can basically chuck the clock together. It's got a 7-leaf pinion on there, but that's wheel to pinion. So we might have to change the phase relationship here because I can't put my gathering pallet on all four squares. It only goes on two, being a reasonable fit, but let's worry about that a bit later. Third wheel, as it's now called by EU law, upper intermediate wheel, sorry. Just got myself a €10 fine there, saying third wheel. Escape, warning, fly, fly. Yeah, be super careful when the pivots are. There's one other thing I remember, there's a burr on there. Must have been dropped at some point. So just get a pivot file burnisher. Just burnish that down a little bit. Don't know how that happened. It got on the floor. But it'll cut the pins if it's left as it is. There we are. That's nice and smooth now. So there you go. Don't let people tell you that I never use a pivot file. I do. Lots. Let's pop our hammer into our new pivot hole, which is really satisfying. So I think that's it, isn't it? Everything is there that needs to be there. Yep. We've got 4 minutes to get the pivots in the holes. And we're watch the Olympic highlights, see the Dutch thrashing us at the rowing again. So we've got center wheels in, gathering. I'll try and do this so you can see, but I can't see them. Is in. So it's just centers just hanging up there. Gathering back. Upper intermediate wheel. Formerly known as the third wheel. Right in that squidged up bearing. All right, then we've got the dreaded extended bush, which of course I rather bloody-mindedly wouldn't rebush because that would mean extending the arbor, but nevertheless. Hey. You see the warning wheel, somebody's bent it at some point. Could have a go at straightening that up, but I think it's look at that end, you can see. I can't remember how long is it this clock had been in the outhouse. 38 years, something like that. That's the first time it's struck in about 40 years. That's quite nice. So I'll just pop a couple of pins in for the time being. And then obviously no oil on it yet, so I'm not going to put any major load on it, but the next thing to do is to get the phase relationship right, and we're going to run out of time, but at least we've got the train together. It's nice. We already know that our going train works fine. We can see our escape wheel there is nice and flat. That third wheel might be quite noisy wobbling about it. Again, how it got bent, who knows, but maybe it's something to do with the fact that the pivot's been broken off and it's got that extended bush. So I will straighten that up. Just, it's easy to do. Put it back in the watchmaker's lathe and just true it a bit so it's not pushing the fly backwards and forwards as it rotates. But that's quite nice. So the next thing I'm going to do is put on the rack hook, and then we can put on the gathering pallet so we get the phase relationship right. So the phase relationship is as soon as the hammer drops, so at that point, exactly, we want the train to lock immediately after. We don't want any run on to locking after the hammer's dropped. We want it to be as close as possible, because otherwise then the clock's already lifting the hammer when it begins to strike, which causes all sorts of problems. So we haven't got our rack post on yet, so it's still got another hour or something to do. Let's just fit our gathering pallet on. Put it on the right way around, it would help, wouldn't it? Duh. Just so you can see. Right, so when it's in that position, this wants to be round here. So it's probably, let's just, the rack's going to be there. So there's this, did I say it was a 7-leaf pinion? Yes, a 7-leaf pinion. So the answer is we can definitely get that closer. Can you see what gap there is as it rotates? We can definitely get that much closer to that position. So we want the hammer to drop and then it just to lock down on the rack there as quickly as that. So I'm going to have to not take the whole thing apart, but change the phase relationship between the pinwheel and the gathering wheel. So there you go. We'll see you on the 2nd of September.
Yeah.
Is it? As I said, I'm going to, over the next 4 weeks, write a blog about the whole process of running a live stream. First one I've ever done. I don't know whether other clocks people do them. If they do, if you wouldn't mind sending me in their direction, and I can have a chat with them and see what their experience is. But otherwise, thank you for all your support and good humor over these 4 months, is it? This is number, what number is it? Do you know?
I don't know. Sorry.
Anyway, 4 months or 5 months or whatever it is. And our clock, which was kind of feeling a bit sorry for itself, I think I'm really happy with the way it's going. Tiny bit more de-rusting to do. And then I think that's pretty much is. We've got the dial to sort out, the hands to make, and so on. So massive thank you to you people for supporting us over these months. We'll be back in September with a new clock. This one, I'll put it on Facebook as and when I do something. And of course, big thank you to Team Open Clock Club, who's kept all the chat going as we've gone along. And please, if you know people who are interested in American clocks, send them along in September. It'll be a very different feel to this project because I don't think there's going to be any repairs, making, I don't think so anyway. But what there is going to be is a whole lot of cleaning, and cleaning is a subject that gets everybody going. So bring them along, the American clock people, and we will talk about that. Okay, thanks very much. Have a great summer, short summer break for us, and we'll see you in September. Thank you.